Happy Persona Summer, everybody. This is Chris. A quick note before we start. This was recorded before all the big Summer Game Festival announcements, including the release date for Persona 4 Revival, which we now know will be, February 18th, 2027, and also before the official announcement of Persona 6, which will be, not anytime soon, it seems. They revealed basically a logo, not a whole lot else. There is this juicy-ish detail from the store page. It is, quote, something darker, strange rumors, unsettling urban legends, and occult incidents that only you and your closest allies can face. And that's it. So maybe late 2027, maybe 2028, I don't know. It's a while. I say all this so you can think about what Persona game you might want to play for Persona Summer. I think of Persona 3, 4, 5, 6, which is unavailable. Persona 3 Reloaded seems like the best bet right now, or maybe Persona 5 Royal. And I also think non-Persona games that are doing Persona things, which you can find in the newsletter at post.games or on the Patreon at patreon.com/postgames. Anyway, that is all the table setting. I hope that you have a wonderful Persona Summer. Let's get to the show. Welcome to Post Games, a podcast about how and why we love video games. I am your host, Chris Plant, and I am so happy to have you here to celebrate a very special holiday that I have fabricated from thin air. Persona Summer. What is Persona Summer? How does Persona Summer work? Will Persona Summer make you a better person and improve your relationships with family, friends, and coworkers? 3 Persona experts are here to answer those questions in just a moment. But there's one question that I can answer right from the top. Why is it Persona Summer? And like a Persona game, you're going to have to show some real patience to figure out where the hell I'm going with this. If you are an adult with any financial obligations and responsibilities, then you are keenly aware that everything is getting more expensive. Gas, groceries, and of course, video games, though that's obviously not as important. It would be oddly comforting if I could point to a single reason for this inflation, but that's not really the case. The current financial hell that we face every time we open our wallets stems from a perfect storm of disastrous political decisions, unstable oil markets, expanding wealth disparity and inequality, unregulated prediction markets, underregulated traditional markets, and most pressing for today's episode, RAM shortages, from data centers gobbling up current stock and claiming future stock for months and in some cases years to come. Think of RAM like a computer's short-term memory, living alongside the long-term memory of your SSD or your hard drive. It is crucial to every bit of computing technology, from your PC to your smartphone to your video game console. Your Xbox, your PlayStation, your Switch, they can't live without it. So, RAM prices go up, console prices go up. Last week, Valve's top-end Steam Deck handheld increased from $649 to $949. That is a $300 spike. And I have heard concerns from leaders at major game studios that top-end consoles could pass the $1,000 mark before the holidays. New video games on new video game consoles have long been limited to the financially comfortable. But as prices of both games and hardware begin to climb over the course of a generation rather than fall, video game culture risks splitting further and further between the haves and the have-nots. Indie games that cost dramatically less than AAA titles and often run on low-end hardware like maybe your old laptop work well. Borrowing new games from public libraries, if you're fortunate enough to be near one that stocks them, is great. I personally like to encourage players to break free from the social or internal pressure to keep up with every major release and find joy in their backlog on older hardware. Therefore, I have declared this summer Persona Summer, because now more than ever, we should feel encouraged to give our wallets relief and collectively clear some major games from our backlogs. And what bigger, better backlog series than Persona? Games that nearly everyone listening to the show has heard of. Many have started but not finished, and plenty have never tried despite grabbing one already during a sale. To provide support for everyone, from first-time Persona players to obsessive fans who know their Shin Megami Tensei from their Metaphor Refantasio, I have collected a crack team of experts. Structurally, the show is a bit different than usual. We will actually begin with the Patreon bonus section, and because it is a holiday, because it is Persona Summer, this section will be available to all listeners, both on the Patreon and the free feed too. Into the Aethers, Brendan Bigley and Stephen Hilger, who have recorded hours-long analyses of Persona games, help us set the ground rules to live the best Persona Summer possible. And after that, game narrative designer and former games journalist Leigh Alexander explains what Persona is, then demystifies a series that can be intimidating, even to fans, showing us a very clear place for everyone to start their adventure. And lastly, a bonus for the new section, totally unrelated to Persona. Senior programmer of the Tribeca Film Festival, Casey Barron, joins the show to share how the festival has dramatically expanded its games, events, and programming, and how festivals like Tribeca have the long-term ambitions to help get money in the pockets of bold, independent game makers. Plus, one more Persona treat for everyone. To put a bow on everything, I have an exclusive big band cover of the Persona song Aria of the Soul. Yes, you will absolutely want to stay until the very end to hear this one. It's a big show that ends with a big band. Let's get to it. This episode is brought to you in part by Incogni. As a video game journalist who has been doxxed a couple of times, I am constantly preaching the message of personal data hygiene. Every person, not just journalists, should be aware of how much of their personal information, phone numbers, addresses, health information, and more is available on the internet, and that those private details are being sold without your consent by data brokers and can be used for scams, harassment, and other illegal activities. The problem is so big and so widespread that you could lose entire days to finding who has your info, requesting that they remove it, and keeping these bad parties accountable. That is why I, my friends, recommend Incogni. The moment you subscribe and authorize removal, Incogni begins searching data brokers, online directories, people databases, and commercial databases. You get to watch it happen in real time on your dashboard. When I signed up, over 200 removal requests were sent instantly, and within 30 minutes, 60 requests had been completed. I've been using Incogni for months now, and I can see that they are keeping things up to date. They continue to keep me feeling safe and protected and keeping my info offline, exactly where I want it. After going independent and not being protected by a big publishing company, I began searching for the right data personal removal service. Incogni is exactly what I was looking for and has already brought me tremendous peace of mind. Frankly, time and time again, because I get emails regularly letting me know all the things they're doing to keep me safe. To get an exclusive 60% off an annual Incogni plan, go to incogni.com/postgames or click the link in the episode description. That is incogni.com/postgames. Summer always changes how I get dressed. I want pieces that feel lighter and more breathable, things that are easy but still put together. That's why I keep coming back to Quince. They focus on high-quality essentials that feel and look amazing. Think breathable linen and soft organic cotton, well-made basics but without the luxury markup. It's that rare balance where everything feels elevated but still, effortless. Quince European linen pants and shirts are the perfect warm weather upgrade to add to your rotation, starting at just $34. Their tees are soft and easy to wear, and their lightweight cotton sweaters are perfect for cooler summer nights. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. Quince goes way beyond clothing, custom, upholstered sofas, ceramic cookware, premium bedding. It is the kind of brand you end up recommending to everyone for everything. Now, what am I using this summer? You know I am sticking with that 100% European linen, relaxed short sleeve shirt. I have been terrible about dressing like a grown-up for too long, and this is the simplest, cleanest, freshest way to get it done. No more just living exclusively in graphic tee world. I have upgraded, my friends, and I think that you'll want to do the same. Elevate your summer wardrobe. Go to quince.com/postgames for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That is QUINCE.com/postgames for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/postgames. A Patreon bonus, how to live your best Persona summer. Stephen Hilger and Brendan Bigley are co-hosts of Into the Aether, the video game podcast your favorite video game critics listen to. The show is perhaps best known for its regular deep dives into major games like Persona 4 and entire catalogs like the library of the PlayStation Vita. Bigley is also the creator of the newly launched Overworld, a site that aggregates games media into a single, easy-to-scroll feed, and the host of Wavelengths, one of my favorite video game news shows. But for now, it's all Persona. Hey, Stephen, Brendan, a happy Persona summer to both of you.
Happy Persona summer.
Same to you. It's an honor to be here for the inaugural Persona summer.
I am so glad that you mentioned the word inaugural, because the problem we have that we're here today to solve is defining what the hell Persona Summer is.
Yeah.
We have cast out into the world that Persona Summer is here. And I think there's a general vague idea of you're going to play Persona games during the summer. That immediately gets really complicated if you know anything about Persona games and their legacy and their spin-offs and their expansions. I've gotten roughly 1 trillion questions. So I thought we would get it all knocked out here. I can just send a link to people whenever they ask. How in your heads would you define Persona Summer when you hear that phrase?
How would I define Persona Summer? I feel like it's got to start with being yourself, first and foremost. I think that's the most important thing. And I think it's worth acknowledging that we don't all know ourselves completely. So you need to start by finding who you are and ripping that mask off your face so you can find the actual you beneath it. I just think Persona, obviously you should be playing a Persona game, but I think you need to internalize the values of Persona and what they're trying to do. And I'm not exactly talking about what is happening in any of the individual games, but I think the overarching theme of Persona, of being true to yourself but finding out who that is along the way, I think has got to be first. This should be the summer that changes your life, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make. Like this, you should look back at the first ever Persona summer and be like, that was the year everything changed for me. I became a different person. And I think that rocks for you in advance.
I got it. So what I'm hearing is you need to play a Persona game and you need to follow the tenets of that game in order to become a truer version of who you are. That seems simple enough.
Yes.
I do think we need some rules to ensure that people actually achieve that. Here's the problem that I'm running into and what I'm getting a lot of feedback on. Persona Summer could be Persona 3, 4, and 5 and its remakes, altered versions.
Refantasio. Those are pretty close.
It could be Metaphor Refantasio, the most recent pseudo spinoff made by the director of 3, 4, and 5, and other people, obviously. It could be the full series, 1, 2. It could be any of the dancing, singing spin-offs. And it could be Shin Megami Tensei, which is the kind of meta series that Persona finds itself within. Where would you put the boundaries on this?
When you play your first Persona game, it does tend to reshape kind of what you come to expect in an RPG or in a video game in general. Like, for me at least, when I played 5 for the first time, I think the closest parallel I had played was Mass Effect in terms of a game that sort of like had these offbeats of like there's the main story and then it gives you this time to just sort of like hang out with your friends. So I think a good rule for Persona Summer would be that regardless of which one you play, even if maybe, and this may be controversial, but even if it's not one of the main 3, 4, and 5, I think it has to have a social part of it. So I don't know if I would include most of the SMT games in that. I think it has to have.
Oh, you mean social in the video game, but not social outside of the video.
I think it should be both, ideally. I think if we're defining Persona Summer, I think it should have. I think the real world should reflect the digital world, and you should have social in both places.
I like this. By this rule, that would mean Persona 3, 4, and 5, and weirdly, Metaphor Refantasio would be part of Persona Summer.
And even some of the more Persona SMT games, like Tokyo Mirage Sessions, I feel like could also potentially count.
Tokyo Mirage Sessions is a great pull for this.
Yeah.
I in some ways, maybe as summer as it gets. Well,
yeah, it's maybe the most summer
but
one.
It's a very summer game. Yeah. Can I pitch some things that are not related to actually playing the video games?
Please, I would love that.
I'm thinking like, if you are going to have the perfect Persona Summer, I think you need to do yourself a favor however you can, and it doesn't need to be literal, but I do think you need to give yourself a going to the beach arc at some point. I think you need a moment where you and your friends go to a beach of some sort.
Yeah.
And that could be your local pool. That could just be throwing a water balloon at your friend or getting a water balloon thrown at you. I do think in some way you need to give yourself a beach vacation arc. I also think there has to be some kind of element of leveling up your own stats, which sounds like I'm creating a workout routine for gamers that you would see on like an Instagram Reels ad.
Sure.
But I do very literally in some way mean like pick up a new hobby, learn it, get good at it, maybe do that with friends too. And I think if you walk away from Persona Summer applying yourself in some way, shape, or form to like expanding the boundaries of what you do on a daily basis, that will probably also be transformative in some way, shape, or form.
I like that. So we have the basic gist here. You need to play a Persona game. It could be 3, 4, 5, any of their spin-offs, Metaphor Refantasio, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, or any other Shin Megami Tensei related game with social links. We will have to provide a list in the show notes for people.
I'm on it. I'll get to.
I'm realizing that we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Do you think we should always say yes to your friends when they call you to hang out?
Not if you have better things to do.
This is the problem. Like, I want it to be an inherently social experience, but I'm thinking about my actual
gotta
experience.
take care of number one,
games.
baby. You gotta level up some other stats before you make time
it's
for Steven.
raining and you want me to go hang out with you? No, I'm going to study in the library and get double the knowledge points.
I think this connects to your first prompt of be true to yourself. You sometimes making space for everyone is not the right move, even if you otherwise care about them, you know?
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect.
Do each of you have a recommended pick for Persona Summer for somebody who's just getting into it?
The one I just played most recently, or I guess replayed sort of, was Persona 4 Golden. And I think that's like an obvious pick for the summer aesthetic. It's also the most upbeat in tone. Like 3 is definitely much more dour and kind of depressing. It's uplifting overall, but not really until the end. And 5, I think, is kind of in the middle. Like 5 is upbeat, but I think covers heavier material than 4, which is saying a lot considering 4 is about a murder mystery. But yeah, I would say
Rainy days.
Yeah, I think 4 captures like the restlessness of summer in a way that the other 2 don't. So 4 Golden would be my pick.
That makes sense in also the like Boku no Natsuyasumi Japanese
right.
tradition of visiting rural areas for your summer vacation. Like I can follow that. How about you, Brendan?
They nail. I'll just say on Persona 4, they really nail the sounds of like the summer in that game. I think they do a really good job of like having all the summer bugs kind of going at full force. So it is really evocative in that way. I think my answer would probably also be Persona 4 Golden, but I think especially maybe you're like newer to the franchise or something, I would maybe point people instead towards Persona 3 Reload as kind of like the new entry point. I definitely agree with where you're coming from, Stephen, about the dourness of it when you start. But I do think once you get closer to that game's Let's All Go to the Beach arc and all of your, I don't even know what to call them, agents, maybe I'll say, all your friends.
I don't say your coworkers.
You could honestly, they're coworkers. Yes. Once you get to the point where everybody who you live with starts to open up a little bit more, you are kind of getting to the summer months in that game. And so I think you are both getting into a game that has maybe the most structured routine of the three main modern ones. Also, because it's like the most recent one they've released, there's a lot of kind of quality of life issues that they've smoothed over and just made it a little bit easier for people to get into. It just feels a lot like 5, but is also pared back in terms of what you can do on a daily basis. But I think personally, the vibes are kind of unmatched in the summer parts of Persona 3. I really love what that game has to do there. So 3 Reload would be my pick. Do you have a pick, Plant?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's obviously Metaphor Refantasio. And it's just because you get to go to an island. And, you know, if I'm going to be on vacation, I'm going to be on island time. That's just how I like to live my life.
Absolutely, baby.
I also think it is the least abstracted version of the combat system in all of these games. And you can learn it while you're playing it versus the Persona games where you almost need to play the game once. One of them all the way through before you truly know how to play a Persona game, which brings me right to my next question. There are people who have informed me that they played all the Persona games. They want to play Persona Summer. They want to be a part of this. They like to be a part of the community. What do? I guess I tell them to replay it. And Stephen, I know you are not unfamiliar with the idea of playing one of these games multiple times over and over. What's the appeal?
That's a great question. I think it also varies on each one. Any version of 3 is structured in a way where a lot of the social links aren't available until the end. So unless you're following a very strict guide, you're likely not going to see the bulk of the S links your first time. And so I think the appeal for 3 and 4 overall is like seeing what you didn't see the first time, especially if there's like more esoteric requirements to getting like there's an S link in 4 that's like the younger brother of the first person who's murdered in the town that I think is one of the best S links, but like 90% of people are not going to get it their first time.
Yeah, can you describe S link just like for people who don't know it?
That was a little too casual. Yeah, S-Links.
So
cool. S-Links, or they're renamed Confidants in 5, and I think Followers in Metaphor, but they're all the same thing. Basically, it's the game's way of gamifying your friendships. So usually it's everyone in the main party, and then also like important NPCs like in your class and around town, who all have their own storyline. So like when you in your off days, when the game's like, how do you want to spend today? When you're not dungeon crawling, you can choose to spend time with these characters. And if you do, it will level up your S-Link rank with them. And for each rank, you get like a little vignette of story. And then you also get a gameplay benefit. So like every confidant or S-Link or follower has like a different perk to getting to level, whatever in their S-Link. So like for a lot of the party members, like in 3 and 4, they still had the system where like, actually I think 5 has this too. If the protagonist dies in combat, it's game over, even if everyone else is alive, which is one of my least favorite things about the series, and I'm glad Metaphor cut it out. But like what is kind of cool is that one of the first S-Link abilities for your party members is that they will like take a mortal blow for you. So like it sort of is it's not only a way of gamifying relationships, but it's also the game's way of, I think, bridging both of the worlds together, where like the commitment to helping out this old couple at the bookstore will somehow result in you channeling, stronger personas in that arcana, because every S-Link is also tied to one of the major arcana. So like, yeah. Does that answer your question?
If you're replaying it, then you are both getting like richer story and also getting richer gameplay mechanics at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think there's like the mechanical, like you probably didn't see everything the first time. You get to see what you didn't see by replaying it. I think on a more abstract level, there's also a joy in revisiting a place. And I think all of these games, their biggest strength is making a space that feels kind of real and lived in and is fun to just exist in. Like, I think the main plot of every Persona game to me is second to just the atmosphere and the sort of day-to-day life stuff. In the best ones, it can complement that, but I think that there's just appeal in like, I want to do that again. I want to exist in that world. And there's also just so much writing. To be candid, not all of it's like amazing, but like there's so much dialogue and so much of it is like sort of slice of life adjacent that like you're probably not going to retain most of the beats. The same way if you like rewatch a TV show, you'll probably have like certain moments memorized. Like there's something about Persona that's sort of impossible to fully retain other than like the combat barks, that it will feel fresh, especially if you're playing it like a year or so later. That's one thing I would say is like the caveat of saying like, yeah, at this point I've played Persona 5 like 2.5 times, given like I played it once when it came out, and then I played Royal, and then I in between Royal coming out, I started New Game Plus for Persona 5, where I just started like a new file. And then I was like, well, I should just get the older ones if I'm replaying this. But yeah, I think that's the appeal for me, is like just existing in that space, especially if you haven't played in a while. It's very comforting and nostalgic.
Can I, before we go on, can I just let you know that I actually know why I'm going to be canceled before it's even going to happen? And It's because, and I thought about just changing this, taking it out of the episode. Mm-hmm. I kept calling the game Persona 5 Royale instead of Royal.
Oh, like with
throughout
cheese.
the whole thing. And I could go in and change it, but I'm not going to.
You got to own it.
I got to own it.
You got to be yourself. It's rule number 1 of Persona Summer, Chris. And
that's true. I got to be true
Royale.
to me. I just think like if it's going to be fancy, I want it to sound fancy.
Dude, absolutely. I get
Anyway, I'm going to smash together 2 of the things Steven said, which is this like revisiting a place, which is very like going on vacation to the same spot for a second time, right?
Yeah.
And also the social part of it. And I think a big part of the appeal for me is once you have been through this journey, you get to talk to other people who have been through this journey, or you can watch videos or listen to things. You all have gone on these journeys. You have recorded them. I think they're like 30, 40 hour long episodes. I don't know the exact
50,
amount of time.
60.
50, yeah, sure. 70, 80. Can you let people know a bit about like the episodes and why they, like, should they play the game alongside them? Should they play the game first, listen to these episodes? Ooh. What do you recommend?
I'll tell you my answer here, because I think I had a very unique experience separate from Steven, because the first bonus about Persona that happened, I was not on. It was Steven and 2 of our friends, Alana and Callie, who did it for our Patreon. And at that time, when they recorded that, I had not finished any Persona game. And that is a episode that I've been sipping like a wonderful little broth for years. As I have completed every Persona game, I've gone back and listened to whatever segment from that episode that they've talked about.
Because that was about 3, 4, and 5, to be clear. Like we did. Yes. Although it's funny because there's so many different versions of that even I hadn't played every version of each one yet. So like I had played original 4, but not Golden. But Callie and Alana had played Golden, but not original. And same, like it's a nightmare. But That was the best attempt at the time of doing a 3, 4, and 5 bonus.
Yes. And then most recently, we just did a Persona 4 Golden bonus, which I think is, if you're going to play Persona 4 Golden, we talked about that game that was a long episode. We talked about
it was a lot of fun. Yeah. I think that episode is divided up in a way that, like, to answer your follow-up question of, like, should people play it first? I think if you're curious, we do a pretty good job going into our personal history with the series and explaining the appeal, at least to us, in the spoiler-free part. So you could probably listen to the first, like, hour of that and then save the rest for when you play it, because the rest of the episode is, like, very much in the weeds of, like, what happened, and then we have, like, a listener Q&A after. But I do think that the Persona 4 Golden episode is, like, even though it's specifically about that game, we do kind of talk about our feelings on the whole series. That would be the one I would point to for most people.
I think so too.
Yeah.
We have a very loose
so far
double feature bonus that's about Persona 5 Royal and Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I would recommend starting with that one.
I would recommend that to, like, if you like us, it could be fun. But I don't know.
Was that recorded during the pandemic?
Yeah, it's like very much like
that real pandemic.
Yeah, it was like we need something. To lift our spirits.
Because the structure of our show is, like, weekly episodes are whatever we're playing that week, and then we'll do what we call bonuses that are, deep dives on a single game. And that bonus is really just like, this is actually just an additional episode, and we can't leave our homes. Perfect. So here it is.
Yeah, exactly.
The 2 games keeping us sane.
To wrap things up, there's so this episode, it's going to come out on the Friday of the Summer Games Festival.
Ooh.
Or Game Festival. I forget if it is plural or not. And then
it's singular. I've needed to really etch this into my head recently. It's singular.
The Summer Game Festival, in which we honor the summer game, Persona.
Just the one.
Just the one. And then it's going to drop on the Patreon on Friday. And then this is going to age like milk. And then Saturday, Sunday are going to pass, in which they announce all sorts of things. And then Monday is going to come, and this episode is going to go live. There is I would say, reasonable chance that either Persona 4, a new remake, will be announced or talked about, or a new Persona game in its entirety will be announced and talked about. Does that influence your Persona summer plans? Like, if they say, here's more Persona 4, it's coming, would you say, hold off on that, focus on Persona 3, or if they announce Persona 6 and you're like, I'm going to be playing that for, like, hours, do I really want a Persona summer now?
I think if Persona 6 comes out this summer, that would be my answer, just because it will be the one everyone's playing, and that will kind of connect more to, like, the social aspect outside of the game. Like, I think it's really fun to, like, be part of a Persona game when it's the new one and no one has written a, like, strict guide for it yet. I had that a little bit when 5 came out. Revival, the Persona 4 remake, I'm excited about, but I have a lot of questions. And so I feel like a safe answer is to stick with my Golden recommendation. But I'm curious how that remake will be. But overall, I think it basically depends on whether or not it's Persona 6.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think if they announce more stuff about Persona 4 Revival, I think you need to do a little bit of soul searching for yourself and ask yourself if you will feel like you can actually make it through Persona 4 Golden this summer, knowing that a remake that everyone will be talking about is probably going to come out either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, somewhere in that vicinity. I think if Persona 6 gets announced, that doesn't change plans at all. Keep on keeping on, play 3, 4, or 5, whatever one speaks to you the most. And then you'll just be in a better spot when 6 eventually does come out. Because I think a thing that you and I have talked about, Chris, off the air, is that Persona is weirdly Monster Hunter-y, where you kind of need to take a couple running starts at the franchise to finally make your way through one. Some people just lock in and they do it on the first try. It took me a bunch of attempts to make it through a Persona game all the way for the first time. And by the time I did, like Monster Hunter or like Dragon Quest also, I felt well equipped to play all the other ones and enjoy them on a deeper level because I now understand all the systems. Well, understand is being very generous to myself. But I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to say I understand them. I understand them. And I think if you persist with Persona Summer, and you pick one game, you play all the way through it, you be yourself, you go to the beach, you level up your stats, and maybe you eat one very big food item at some point.
A food challenge.
Take on a food challenge. You will be ready for Persona 6 when that comes out.
Any last bits of advice for people to have a wonderful Persona Summer?
I think if you're going to have a beach episode, you should also, any one of you and your friends, if you have a pet you can bring outside safely, bring the pet with you. Have an animal mascot in the mix.
Like an iguana?
Yeah, I think... I really hope Future Steven's like, Persona 6 is green and there's an iguana. I am so excited. But definitely bring your pet outside this summer, just regardless of your interest in Persona. Let them get some fresh air.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm going to say don't be beholden to anything. That's the Persona way.
Wow. That's really profound. I can't believe somebody's going to play Dark Souls 3 for Persona Summer.
Hey, there's some socializing in the creepy shrine.
Picross for the Nintendo Switch.
Those are S-Links without menus, really, is what those are.
Would you like to promote your show before I throw you off of this podcast?
I will just say we've been doing Into the Aether for 8 years now. It is surreal to hear we're wrapping up at 20 minutes. I have never felt this feeling before. I feel like I'm getting the audio cane.
I was about to say, this is like the MP3 equivalent.
I just saw a new color, and that's the new palette of Persona 6.
It's Kane pulling me off stage brown. That's what it is. Anyway, Into the Aether. You can go to intothecast.online and check it out there.
It's available everywhere. It's a pretty fun show. I honestly think Persona 4 Golden's not a bad intro to the show itself. But otherwise, you can listen to any recent normal episode that comes out on Wednesday.
Or do the unhinged thing, which a lot of people do, which is the Games of the Decade episodes.
I will link to those and some of my favorite personal episodes. Am I going to link to just episodes that I'm on, coincidentally?
They're fun. Consider the rest.
I will.
Yeah.
They're pretty okay. I'll link to some other ones too because I'm not going to be a total weirdo. Thank you both so much for doing this.
Thanks
I
for
really
having
appreciate
us.
it.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is great.
I love to make this show for you. In fact, I might like it too much because sometimes the clock hits 6 p.m. and I'm like, what am I doing for dinner? I need to take care of my family. I need something delicious and healthy, and I haven't even gotten things started. For me, eating healthy, it's not a willpower problem, it's a setup problem. At least it was until I found Factor. Factor has made it so much easier to make sure that I and my family are eating well with its fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs that are delivered right to your and my front door. With Factor, I am hitting my nutrition goals this season without the planning, without the grocery runs, without the cooking. And I am eating well. Most recently, I have had the fajita spiced shrimp and filet mignon, the pepper fondue shredded chicken, just some delicious stuff. Factor has meals built around your goals, whether that is weight loss, overall nutrition, more protein, or GLP-1 support. For strength and workout recovery, check out Factor's Muscle Pro collection. Factor's food is fresh, never frozen, over 100 rotating weekly meals, including globally inspired flavors like Mediterranean and Asian, so there's always something new to look forward to. It's ready in 2 minutes. Factor shops, preps, cooks, and delivers straight to your door, so you have more time for everything you love this spring, and I have more time to make you this show, and also to spend time with my family, which I love y'all, but I love them the most. I enjoy Factor, I enjoy that it tastes good, and I think that you will too. Head to factormeals.com/postgames50 off and use code postgames50 off to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with new subscription only while supplies last until September 27th, 2026. Act 1. What is Persona? Leigh Alexander is a writer, narrative designer, and storytelling consultant whose work has been nominated in the Game Developers Choice Awards, BAFTA Game Awards, Independent Game Festival, Golden Joystick, and Develop Awards. But before all that, Alexander was a pioneering games journalist and critic who covered games with a speed, fearlessness, and veracity unlike her contemporaries. You will hear us discuss, for example, The Aberrant Gamer, a column with which she covered not safe for work games that even today wouldn't appear in most enthusiast publications, let alone with such sincere analysis. I first encountered Leigh's writing in the early aughts around the release of Persona 3, then called Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3, and I've been a fan ever since. All of which is to say, Leigh didn't just experience this series long before its wider popularity, but that she has a rare affection for and knowledge of the taboo gaming on which Persona grew. In the Persona universe, what is a persona?
So, at least like in the Persona games that, when we say Persona, people probably mean 3, 4, and 5 these days. It is a facet of your soul that can be summoned, and it is a representation usually of a folkloric being or of a deity. Like in Persona 3 and 4, they comprise demons and saints and angels and mythical creatures of all kinds of belief systems and idea mechanics, basically. So it is a being that you can ally with that becomes a part of you. It's a mask that you wear. It influences how you see the world, and it influences how you interact with others. And then in the dungeon portions of the game, because of course the games that we're calling Persona tend to combine like life management sim by day and then dungeon crawler by night. And not only does the Persona support and influence your stats in the life management sim, but it can also be summoned in the dungeon area. Persona games have different ways of explaining and manifesting this. Like in Persona 3, it quite strikingly, you have a gun called an evoker that you shoot yourself in the head with, and it manifests the persona. And I think usually the protagonist can wield multiple personas, but the allies in your RPG party tend to have one that evolves throughout the game as they encounter like key life milestones for themselves.
I know that you first played the series a long time ago. Do you remember the very first contact you had with Persona 3, 4, and 5, really?
Yeah, it would have been Persona 3. I got obsessed with it. I love life simulation. It has really strong dating sim elements, but it also had these darker story themes and these darker mechanical themes that were expressed through the dungeon by night. The whole town kind of goes to sleep, and your school becomes this like never-ending hell zone called Tartarus. It's literally kind of like a Stranger Things upside down version of the world, is the simplest way of putting it. And I guess, it depends on which Persona game you're playing. But for example, in Persona 3, there was like some ancient unholy being that this corporation had, supposedly tried to contain. But of course, we always find out that the evil corporation wants to like bring back the ultimate devil to rule the world. And, there's always the plot itself is very convoluted. But what I really like about Persona is that narratively there's these themes of like, what are the secrets that lie beneath our town? Persona 4 is really good at that too. What is your hidden side that comes out at night? When you're performing as a good student in school and trying to be the most courageous and the most academic, what is it that you're sort of suppressing and hiding, and how is that going to have consequences for you? And it literally becomes like a twisted version of your school, but it's a maze and it's full of monsters, and it has, it just goes deeper and deeper, endless levels. Basically, it has like some strong roguelike elements. And like, I was just absolutely like, I love roguelikes. I love dating sims. I love life simulations. I love managing my stats toward narrative outcomes. Like, I love like crashing out with a girl because I'm not brave enough. Like, I just love when systems do things like that to me. And Persona 3 was so systemically rich that it really just lit up all the dopaminergic centers of my brain. Like, I've got to make these choices by day so I can be strong in the dungeon so that I can get to this floor and open this chest. And then I want to earn these objects in the dungeon so that I can, give these gifts at school tomorrow type vibe. It runs on a scheduled calendar as well. There are sort of like milestones, like if you don't get to this point in the dungeon by this date, then this character dies. And your final exams are coming up, so maybe you shouldn't be running around in the dungeon because you need to be studying after school. And so I loved balancing those irreconcilable goods through systems. Like I love when games do that well, and sadly not a lot of games do that well. And Persona 3 and 4 really do that well.
The weird thing about Persona to me is like where it starts as a series. It can be different places. Like we could be Megami Tensei, it could be Shin Megami Tensei, it could be Shin Megami Tensei F, it could be Persona 1. Persona 3, despite the name of the game, is kind of seen as like the start of the series, as like a modern series. Why is that?
I mean, as far as I understand, like it was just such a huge step up in terms of illustration and world building and character design. It was almost like an anime that you could interact in, and Persona 4 even more so, and Persona 5 too much so. I feel like Persona 5 really gives the front end of a systems management game, but it's actually really linear, because they wanted to go all in on the graphics, and that's a problem most games have these days. So I really like when there is some crudeness that allows for flexibility for the player. But yeah, I think like Persona 3 just hit so hard. Like there's that soundtrack, I believe it's Shoji Meguro. Like the soundtrack is so cool. The graphic design is so cool. The interface design is really like, it still feels hot shit when you see it now. It still feels really elevated to me. Yeah, and it's romantic. It's a little seedy. Like I don't know. It's just it's almost like it takes everything that we like about several game genres, like RPG, roguelike, dating sim, life management, and it just puts them into one really, really confident, eye-catching package. And I think that was the key to it having mainstream appeal, where the earlier games that were about like crunching your stats around in mazes were not as accessible.
Yeah, I mean, you said seedy, and like the other word that keeps coming to mind is taboo. You already mentioned that Persona 3, you would unlock your persona by using what looked like a gun to shoot yourself in the head. What do you remember of the reaction to that then?
Obviously, I remember that people found it controversial. Like, is this promoting suicide? Why should teenagers be shooting themselves? Is this game actually about teen suicide and depression? Which I don't think that it is, but it's not really afraid to sort of deal with things like isolation and aloneness and mental illness. And like the characters are all kind of troubled by something. And this is even more so true in Persona 4. You have dungeons that sort of represent the inner hells or the inner fears of some of the main characters, which I think is really cool. You're living in an isolated town by the river, and it is really explicitly about the things we do in private. I like that, like, some of the relationships are, like, really bad. Like, I forget.
Yes.
I actually forget if it's 3 or 4. I think it's 4, where you start volunteering as a cleaning assistant at the hospital, and this, like, just incredibly shady older nurse starts carrying on an affair with you, even though you're in high school. And then there's another one where there's a really popular girl, and like she wants you to do whatever she wants, and she like makes you skip school with her and do her homework and things like that. And like it's really a toss up whether you should, if you're malleable to her wishes, she might not respect you. And then if you don't do what she wants, she might end the relationship. So like I really like following relationship arcs that are not healthy. I think that's a really fun thing to do in games. I don't like performing the desired behavior until the character likes me more and more. I like navigating people's difficult personalities, and both of the Persona 3 and 4 have a lot of that in a way that I really like.
I want to take a brief tangent, and then I swear we're going to come back to Persona, but one of my favorite things that you wrote early in your career was an entire series about like taboo games and sex in games.
Oh yeah, The Aberrant Gamer.
The Aberrant Gamer, which weirdly to this day, still one of the few in the mainstream press to have done that.
That's funny. I was a girl and I played a lot of hentai games. Like I'll just cop to that. I played a lot of horror games that, that were kind of vulnerable and on their face seemed exploitive of women. Like, and I was like, why do I like these kind of perverted Japanese games where the heroine is hardly wearing any clothes and getting beat up all the time? I mean, now we know I'm gay, but but I was actually interested in, yes, that explains it. But like when I started writing about games, there weren't a lot of women doing it generally.
Yes.
And certainly, I just didn't see anyone who liked the same kind of games as me that was willing to talk about it. I was just really curious, like, why do I play these games? Why do I like them? When there's really intense boobs physics or lots of blood, like, why does that do something for me? Because at the time, there was a lot of, like, playing naughty games makes you naughty, playing violent games makes you violent. And I knew that the answer wasn't simply that I'm a violent pervert, even though, like, perhaps on some level that's true. I was curious about, like, what are the fantasies that these games are appealing to? Because we're used to thinking of games as power fantasies, but these were almost like vulnerability fantasies for me as a woman. Again, maybe I was just trying to intellectualize that I liked a lot of weird shit. But yeah, I was curious about it, and I wanted to expose my preferences to an audience so that I didn't feel so like secretive and weird about it. And like a lot of people, I guess, resonated with it, especially a lot of queer people, which was great for me at the time. Like it really kind of helped me find a community in an industry that would become super hostile to me as a woman and as a closeted person. I'm still like such a huge Silent Hill person. I'm still such a huge Haunting Ground and Fatal Frame person. Like, I like games that make me feel a little gross and bad sometimes. And Persona definitely has that kind of darkness to it.
That's what I was going to bring up is like, I'm not like trying to armchair therapize here.
Oh, please. I could use all the help I can get.
But like, I think what you are talking about and what you were attracted to is the fundamental appeal and the inherent truth of the series, which is high schoolers see the hypocrisy of adults.
Yes.
That all the things that they are attracted to they're being told are taboo and are gross, adults are doing in much more dangerous ways. They're just doing it privately.
Absolutely.
I'm not surprised that there is a connection between what you're writing about, which was, hey, we should just talk about this stuff. It would be much better if we just talked about it.
Yeah.
On that note, Persona has been, I don't know if accused is the right word, but people have noticed the therapy of it all. That your characters seem to be almost going through therapy, the video game.
Yeah.
And can you tell people about that a little bit? About how do characters mature and evolve in the context of going into dungeons and fighting folklore monsters?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, like you say, young people who are dealing with some kind of oppression or repression. Like characters tend to be misunderstood by their classmates and then confront the truth about themselves in the dungeons. So like in Persona 4, we have a girl who is on paper an idol star, but we understand that in private, she kind of feels sexually exploited and feels like a sex worker. And people make judgments about her and her body and all of these things as a result of her career as an idol. And we know that this is actually like something taboo in Asia that isn't talked about, like the dark side of the idol industry. So we have to point out, obviously, like Persona is a Japanese game. And so what they're going to be saying about self-expression and culture is going to be different than how we would say it in the West. And there's been a lot of stuff written about some of these characters in particular, try to reconcile this gap. You have a character who's like basically a guy who's pretty gay coded, a real tough guy who is secretly gay and feels unable to express that in society, feels unable to express his interests. And so his dungeon is all about how horrifying he finds homosexuality and how he's afraid to be this effeminate caricature of himself, basically. And even though like you can reconcile that storyline for him, like he never really comes out and says he's gay. Again, like I'm not some kind of scholar of Japanese culture, and there's a lot of like armchair scholars of Japanese culture in video games, so I don't want to try to be one.
Say.
Yeah, but basically it's like, the vocabulary of a Japanese game around being closeted would just be different from ours, I guess. And so there were a lot of articles at the time of like, should it have been more direct, or, is this actually homophobic the way it came out? But I thought it was cool, characters are on some kind of journey. So as you said, like young people are realizing the hypocrisy of adults, and they are exploring sort of the seedy truth that underlies their smiling communities. And as they perform their obligations to be good young adults, they're being served into a fucked up world, basically. And this is also happening on the individual level as well. Like characters, it's almost like a form of like breakdown that they go through when they are confronted with the impossible bind that they're in, whether that's because they have to inherit the family business or because everyone thinks they're stupid and they, are really kind. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you've seen the anime Paranoia Agent by Satoshi Kon. It's one of my favorites. Yeah. So that in this show, there's like this apparition called Little Slugger, who's a boy on rollerblades with a bat. And like when these characters are reaching their breaking point, here comes Little Slugger to hit you in the head with a bat. And it's the series kind of deals with whether this character is real and how he originated. So Persona definitely has a bit of that tone to it as well, that you have young people at a breaking point, no longer able to keep up a double life or no longer able to sustain the pressures that they're under. And part of them seems to split away and create this sort of dungeon terror. And I do think like in both Persona 3 and 4, you as a protagonist are kind of a loner or a person on the fringes. Like you're not from this area. Everyone knows each other and you don't really know them. And it's about yourself, kind of your own sort of social penetration and your ability to understand others and how you choose to develop as a person, even though you are maybe private and quiet and have all these secrets. Like it's a silent protagonist game. And I think Persona really leans into that. Like as a narrative designer, I love when the narrative is expressed through design. So like, I don't have to watch a cutscene about how I'm a quiet person and nobody really knows me. I know because my character doesn't talk and I decide everything for them.
There was one thing that you said that I want to go back to before we take a quick break and get into the next section, which is we have a lot of armchair scholars of Japanese culture in games. We also just have a lot of people who like and enjoy Japanese culture in games. Part of the appeal of the Persona series is this kind of cultural tourism. And I say that word, which can often be said as a derogative. Here, it's a little more complicated than that. What is the appeal for Westerners who are playing Persona games?
Oh my God. So I don't know if this is going to be a really problematic opinion, but something that I've learned about myself over the last decade or so is that like I'm on the autism and ADHD spectrum. And I think there is a high crossover of us with people who are super into video games because these are like if we have trouble understanding social cues and we have trouble reading information from others that is not explicit, games give us an environment where like our interactions are encoded, they're predictable and they're repeatable, and we can almost sort of role play human behavior through a proxy. And especially like if you have a complex trauma associated with your neurodivergence, it lets you kind of feel things at a safe distance. It can happen to a body that's not yours, and it can happen to a person that isn't you, but you still get to experience it. And I actually think that a lot of neurodivergent people are really into Japanese anime because it is a culture that's distant from ours. And Japanese society seems to have a lot of encoded social roles. And so people, again, like I don't want to problematically speculate about the Japanese, like a lot of video game critics do. I've only been to Japan one time and I'm not an expert. But as I understand it, both the language and the society in Japan is more rule driven than ours. There are right ways to say things. And there's a lot of situationally appropriate grammar that people understand. And so that it almost, for a person who is like maybe neurodivergent or autistic, I think having cultural norms that are a bit more rule governed is comfortable for us, as well as there's the aspect of it being distant from our own culture. So it creates that proxy sensation of I can participate in a society that makes sense to me, but that isn't mine. And I think that can be comforting for a lot of neurodivergent people. So I think that's why like so many of us are like weebs who are into video games. That's this weird theory that I've had lately, and I apologize if that's insulting to any other neurodivergent people or to any Japanese people who may be listening, but I think it is a theory that maybe applies to me, so maybe it resonates for some others.
It's certainly richer than the usual that I hear with this game, which is true, which is like, I don't know, I just want to go to vacation on a small town, you know?
I mean, like the Persona games, like the one thing I will say for Persona 5 is that like having been to Japan on my honeymoon, like Persona 5 feels so real. Like it's like a form of virtual tourism. The world building in all the games is really good and the atmospheres are really realistic. A lot of games, especially RPGs, are set in fantasy realms and like beautiful, impossible places. And it's like, cool, it's Japan. Like, you know, we all want to go to Japan. It's cool there. Like it looks amazing. You know, it looks different than, you know, the architecture is very distinct and like the soda machines, you know, and Persona really like, it latches on to what I think is a plausible notion of Japan that, you know, is like very attractive to Westerners and like people who have gone there once.
I love that. Let's take a very quick break and then we'll come back for the second half. Act 2, where to start your Persona journey. Part of the goal here is to help people who want to play these games be like, oh, yeah, I can hop on. This isn't so intimidating. So what I want to do is talk about all the intimidating things.
Yes.
Number 1.
Yes.
You mentioned Persona 3. If I said, just go download Persona 3, they would discover that there are many versions of Persona 3. In fact, there are many versions of all of these games.
Yes.
Why are there multiple versions of each game?
Okay, well, I actually think this is awesome. It was the Sony heyday where they were, you know, there would then be PlayStation Network release, then there would be a Vita. So when they re-released Persona 3, they polished and expanded it. They added the opportunity to play as a girl, which was like, oh, I love Persona 3 from the female perspective because the upperclassmen in that game are so cute and I love their storylines and it's so good that you can make them romantic. So there was actually adjustments to the social links so that you could romance characters that were not romanceable when you were a boy. I thought that was really cool. So there was actually some controversy with Persona 3, the original, because the characters could not be controlled by the player. They had like an AI system, basically, that you could influence. And I've read the director saying that that was intentional on their part. They wanted you to feel like they were their own people making their own choices. But that was super controversial at the time. It at times made it difficult to succeed in the dungeons. So I think, you know, in subsequent editions, they added the ability to control your characters. There were things about like, you know, just standard like roguelike pinch points and stuff like that they had eased in subsequent versions. So it's really not that different from other video games that, you know, get patched or that get new editions from time to time. Like there's a few editions of Metal Gear Solid 3, which is my other favorite game. And it's like some of them are graphical improvements, some of them are systemic improvements, some of them are additional and bonus content. And as far as I understand, it was just like, it was a steady evolution in the property to address common fan complaints and to make it more accessible and easy to read. Because it doesn't really, Persona 3, as far as I remember, doesn't significantly tutorialize you. Like, there's certain aspects of the gameplay that are crucial but submerged in the like design vocabulary, like the fact that who you talk to, you'll do better with them if you have a persona of their arcana equipped, or you have to allocate your points to these different statistics by certain dates to succeed at certain tasks. And so there's a huge element of like, you're probably at level 40 before you figured out how to play, and then you're annoyed. But I mean, people don't mind that with Dark Souls and stuff. Like, you should see all my Bloodborne builds that are just like completely screwed at level 75. Like, you know, I think that's just RPGs to some extent. You learn as you go and then you start again. But because the Persona games are so long and so difficult, I think, you know, a lot of people probably rightly resented that imposition on their time. And so like different editions were released to sort of just streamline some of those things and make them more accessible.
What about like the most recent one with like Persona 5 and Persona 5 Rail? Because what you're describing early on is we don't even entirely know what this game is. Like, we're figuring out how tutorials work. We're figuring out how relationships work. We're figuring out how to communicate the battle system so you're not 40 levels in before you know how it works.
Yeah.
Persona 5 Royale, the most successful of all the games, feel different than that. Is it fair to say that?
Yeah, I was so disappointed in them because they're so, well drawn and well animated. But I swear to God, I had to have played for 15, 20 hours before I felt like I had control over my character. It was, on its face, it was a systemic game, but it was actually using the systems of Persona to create a linear experience. What I loved in the earlier games was that I could manage my time and it was up to me to be prepared for these events. And Persona 5 is extremely handholdy, extremely linear. The aspect of player judgment is just completely absent. So, I guess if you'd never heard of Persona and you have no idea what it is, you could start with 5 because it does everything for you. And then, you think like, well, what if I had a little bit more ownership on this journey? And again, I like games where you have to make tough choices and you can't see everything and you can't unlock every character and you can't please every person and each playthrough is going to be a bit different. But I guess that's like controversial now. Like if the game says no to you, then you get mad and it sucks. So I think Persona 5 was like hitting you over the face with making sure you didn't miss anything or anyone. And that aspect of discovery was missing, and I missed that aspect of I missed the management aspect and the openness of the previous games. I like to use my own judgment, and I like to inhabit those bodies and those spaces myself, and even if that means I have consequences or I make mistakes or I miss things, I like that management aspect to be on my shoulders. Maybe I'm just old school, maybe that's old school behavior now.
The other thing that can be really intimidating about this series, it's silly to say a dancing game is intimidating, but there is so much Persona stuff.
Yeah.
There are spin-offs, there is anime, there's manga. Is any of this stuff something a newcomer should even be thinking about, worrying about? Like, who is it for?
A lot of it is kind of the same thing. Like I said, they have several editions of 3 and 4, and you would just play the latest and most polished edition probably. Like you would play the golden version of Persona 4. And then the anime are just the same characters and the same story. So if you want to play Persona 3, play the latest version and watch the Persona 3 anime. And if you want to play Persona 4, play the golden edition and watch the anime. Like as far as I'm concerned.
Do you have a starting point that you recommend for people?
I guess that depends. I think probably Persona 4 is the one that threads the needle perfectly between the overproduction and linearity of 5 and the opacity and weirdness of 3. Like, I think if you held my feet to a fire, I would say I prefer Persona 3 because of the gameplay experience. I like the darkness, I like the grittiness, I like the messiness of it. I like how kind of sprawling and convoluted it is. It feels textured. But Persona 4 is an absolutely awesome game. It has touching characters. It has a really well-realized world. It's a lot more accessible than 3. It has the high-quality characters in the animation, but it doesn't. I don't think it over controls you. And I feel like Persona 5 is very overproduced, and I think that Persona 4 is just a very high quality production. And it's so funny that we should be talking about this now because when I was a kid, I remember Persona 3 was RPG for babies. Oh, you need anime and stories in your RPG. We just want to march through the fields and have random encounters endlessly. The Persona series was actually considered it was considered a hybrid RPG that was not for true core fans of the genre. So now we're oh, Persona's so hardcore. So it's just it's funny to see how the conversation
how the
evolves.
world changes.
Yeah. I always felt like I was being a tourist or a baby being such a big Persona fan and not playing I don't know, Party of 4 Dragon Adventure. You know what I mean?
I do really want a box now that is Party of 4 Dragon Adventure. Before we wrap up, I do want to predict the future just a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Persona 6. It'll come out someday. Katsuda Hashino was the director of Persona 3, 4, and 5. Maybe left, at least split time to direct Metaphor Refantasio.
Oh, yeah.
We don't know for sure who's directing Persona 6 yet. But with all of that table setting out of the way, what do you want from a Persona 6? If they handed you the keys and they said, how do we get this back into the center of your heart?
Oh my God. Well, so for me to play it again, I would need the simulation elements to be fully gritty, present, and open. I want more control. I want more social links. I want more time management. I want more character management. I want I really kind of want that simulation of myself in orientation to the darkness of society again. Like, I don't want to sacrifice the gameplay that I miss for narrative set pieces. And I mean, most contemporary games today are sacrificing player agency in favor of like telling them what's happening and shoving narrative set pieces in their face. But I want to inhabit the story again. I want to blow off my friends because I'm sleeping with the evil devil nurse and just feel bad about it, not because the game told me to. You know, like I want to sleep. I want to sleep with problematic people. That's what I want out of Persona 6. And I don't want it to tell me when to go to school. I want to decide when to go to school.
You kind of answered my last question. I'll give it to you just in case. What are the taboos that would be in Persona 6? Like, are there things that you're like, oh, a Persona in 2026 should be exploring this?
You know, based on what I know about the history of the whole Shin Megami Tensei franchise, I would really love to see it play with the environment around device use and how we are different people in our phones than we are in person. I think themes of like catfishing and information manipulation are more relevant now than ever. I think addiction to algorithms, disinformation. It seems very Persona, like for everyone to get a new phone that starts making them think bad thoughts and you have to like attack the phone company or whatever and confront the evil technology billionaire that is channeling the devil to infect everybody's minds through their phone. Like that seems like a very Persona concept to me. And like, you know, your device would be your interface for managing your systems. Like I love device driven gameplay, and I love, you know, probably like the self in relation to virtual society is my favorite theme as a storyteller. And again, because like I said, the original Persona Shin Megami Tensei game that I played was like you're in an AI simulation through your phone, and like that's actually kind of a reality for a lot of us today. So maybe you have a town where everyone is increasingly relying on a, you know, hallucinating chat GPT that is luring them into distorted relationships with each other, and you have to get to the bottom of this and break the mind control that this phone AI has on the town. Like that type of thing feels very Persona to me. It feels very prescient. And I think it could actually like have something to say about our climate. Like I hope it does something like that.
I love that. I was expecting you could answer, but right away I was like, damn, now I just need to play this game.
I'm
right
a narrative
away.
designer. I got good ideas.
I should have just known. Thank you so much for doing this. This was really fun. Where should people, I was going to say follow you, but I don't know if you want people to follow you. Where should people check out your work?
Geez. Well, I'm on Blue Sky right now at Leigh Alexander, and gosh, I have a link tree. Like, you know, where do we have our hubs for our work anymore? Like, I have a website, but I've not updated it in 5 years. You know, you could just Google me.
Perfect. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah, it was really fun. Like, I've not like shot the shit about a beloved video game in quite some time, and I knew it would be really good fun with you. It's been great catching up.
Act 3, the news of the week. Casey Barron is a senior programmer at the Tribeca Film Festival, focusing on U.S. narrative and games. His work in film spans a country and a decade, but his work in games is equally interesting. Alongside Tribeca, he serves on the advisory board of the NYU Game Center Incubator. Under his guidance, the Tribeca Film Festival's gaming program is growing to include both major studios like a panel on Remedy's Control series, but also some of the most promising indies. I get why a film festival would want to incorporate games these days, as games have become one of the most appetizing opportunities in Hollywood, but Tribeca's work predates this trend. I was happy to chat with Casey to hear more about the origins of games at Tribeca, dating years back, and how he and the team hope to help game creators the way their festival has helped film directors for decades. Casey, thank you so much for joining me. I think a lot of people have probably heard of Tribeca Film Festival, almost certainly have heard of Tribeca Film Festival. I think the gamers might not know the origin of the Tribeca Film Festival. Can you tell people a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's funny. We have quite an interesting origin because we started hosting events revolved around games beginning in 2011. And that started with a partnership with Rockstar Games where we held an event revolved around LA Noire. If anyone remembers, during the initial cycle of that game, the marketing campaign of that game, they were really pushing forward the narrative aspects and the overall performance capture technology and things that they were using. So that's how it initially started. And really that evolved into more events over the course of the years until we had a bespoke Tribeca Games Festival multi-day event in 2017. Yeah, it's really sort of snowballed into now this space where for 5 years, now into our 6th year, we've been hosting official selections through our games gallery. And so for us, it's really about being at the forefront of the conversation between culture and games, still with that narrative and storytelling bedrock or foundation, if you would, but providing an opportunity for these amazing creators and developers across the globe, a platform to showcase these projects. So in 2021, we started with our first lineup that included projects like Sable and so forth, and they were all hosted through Parsec. And over the last few years, we've started to host the builds in person at Pier 57. So this year, that will be open June 10th through the 14th. And all the playable builds, each game gets its own bespoke station, own controller, own Bluetooth headset, and monitor. And we just invite folks to come out and have fun and try out these really eclectic projects. So that's a little bit of the history, but funny enough, it even goes back beyond that. A lot of folks probably won't know this, but there was once an arm of Tribeca called Tribeca Interactive, where Gene Rosenthal and Robert De Niro actually created a game themselves called Nine the Last Resort. You can actually find copies on eBay. And we hosted an opportunity for folks to play it a couple of years ago at De Niro Con, which was, of course, a celebration of Bob's birthday, revolved around his 80th birthday.
When the film industry gets into video games, it is often met, I would say, with a healthy dose of skepticism, would maybe be a polite way of putting it. What has Tribeca done, especially in the recent years, over the last 2 or 3 years, to kind of build trust in the gaming community?
Yeah, I think one of the things we look to do is really platform games and creators that we feel are doing unique work within the medium, within the space, right? It's not about platforming folks who are looking at this as a sort of cash money grab opportunity. It really is looking at this medium as an art form and really trying to elevate that and make sure folks understand the art forward nature of the medium more than anything else. So beyond that, it also comes always from a space of love, right? And passion for us. We're all, as far as tagged to the games program specifically, all fans of the medium and all always looking for new games to try out. So I'd say that's one thing, but then also looking for opportunities to elevate the different games and developers. So we recently announced a partnership with DICE for the DICE Awards. So any games that come through as official selections also get a waived fee for the DICE competitions and a heightened look throughout their competitions. So that gives games another opportunity to be discovered as they go through their year-long or multi-year journeys through release, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I want to dig into that a little bit more because film festivals, in my head, are a place for indie filmmakers to get their work in front of buyers. Like, there's a public-facing thing of you can go see movies, but ultimately this is a part of a system that helps indie filmmakers get seen by the people who need to see them so that they can eventually get beyond the film festival. Right. And in an interview with Spawn on Me that you recently did, you talked about how developers have let you know that, like, the one thing they need is money, right? They also need this. That is a real problem out there. So what is, maybe not the ambition this year, but the long-term ambition to square those two problems of how do we get these games in front of the people who need to see them? How do we get money in the pockets of game developers so they can make art?
Oh, absolutely. Such a great question. I think one of the things we try to be mindful of, that idea of strong curation and taste, right? I love any sort of project, any sort of space that can provide platform to drive these games out here. I know in some recent podcasts you've done, Chris, you talk about the overall scope of games and the breadth of games that are being released on a day, on a week, right? So there's a lot for consumers to try to put up with. So that discoverability factor is definitely a key thing for us. And to your point, the sort of legacy of what we've done as a film festival certainly has been with regards to driving indie films, hopefully towards the path of buyers, so on and so forth. But there's a lot of different ways we can also be a linchpin for progress for creatives, right? We also have an arm of the festival called the Creators Market that's meant to provide in development, in production projects, the opportunity for financing, for meetings with other producers, so on and so forth. So as far as the forward future of thinking on the games program side is to really have a natural evolution tied to that, where we can create very obvious but authentic and organic rails to provide more opportunities for share developers to get hopefully some of those funds. One of the things I've heard in some of my conversations with folks who've been in the industry for decades is a lot of these VCs, a lot of these different companies are jumping into bed without the understanding, right, of what this medium is from both a consumer perspective, but also from a development perspective. You know, you might have a creative who can, or a team who comes in and says, this game is going to take 5 to 6 years to make. And the financier might say, can you do it in 2? And considering the nature of the industry and just how shaky a lot of the ground feels for folks, they might say, sure, we can try to do it in 2. You can imagine all the obvious problems that's going to create just when you start going through the thought experiment of it all. So I think there's an opportunity for us. We work with games and developers at the earliest phases in some cases. The amount of prototypes I've played over the last 5 or so years, you'd be surprised about it. We really do track a lot of these teams and projects on a very long timeline. So I think we have a real mindset and understanding of how it looks, how that iterative cycle really builds a game that can find an impactful audience and really shake things up industry-wise. So hopefully we have the opportunity to forge some of those connections and, like you were saying, put, frankly, money in the pockets of developers to really sort of push forward with their creative pursuits.
I realize I kind of got ahead of myself there because I'm asking, they've already made it into Tribeca. They're already gotten the gravy. Before they do that, they have to make it into Tribeca. How do you and your team go about selecting a game?
It's a really interesting process, I'll be frank. It's certainly different than the film side because even though on the film side, we may see indie films in a rough cut stage, a fine cut stage, right? A game can change so much based off that iterative process from a prototype to different build phases. So we really try to be mindful that we select based off potential. We're not looking for a finished product by any means when a piece comes in. And so it starts really once, even before the competitions reopen. Every year our cycle begins in September, around mid to late September. We reopen the competitions. It's open to anyone in the world who's interested in submitting a project. We just need a playable build to get hands-on with. And then myself, I actually go to different conferences, go to different festivals, do cold calls and contact people on LinkedIn and all the things to try to, solicit some projects that have just piqued my interest. Maybe I've seen it in a showcase or something, or I've seen it pop up on Twitter. There's just a number of different ways we find things. And then it's typically myself or my predecessor, Casey Baltez, who really started this program and has put me in this seat, which I certainly don't take lightly. And so we play every game. And then beneath me, there is a couple trusted individuals who have worked in the industry, who understand game development, particularly this year, Lydia Kwa and Philip Bali, who also play the games alongside me. So it's certainly not by any means Casey makes all the decisions on the full program. I don't think anyone wants that. We probably have a very dark program at the festival, but I get the opportunity to really balance perspectives, right? And my overall thoughts on a game with their insights and how they think it's hitting for them. And really always be, like I mentioned, are really sitting with that foundation of narrative and storytelling. Each game has a different storytelling apparatus onto itself, right? So it's not that every game has to have a linear, think Uncharted, think God of War, even maybe something like Hades to a lesser sense, but it has a real sort of beginning, middle, and end. We experience games and we try to showcase games that work in a number of different ways around that. So that's the bedrock. And then trying to think of feel. I want to really provide space and a platform for games that I love to go back towards. I'm playing until 3 a.m. in the morning. And then when I wake up the next day, all I want to do, even though I have meetings all day, is jump back on the controller, on my Steam Deck, whatever it is, and put some more time into that project. So I think really that's what it comes back down to, as well as the gameplay loop. We can have as much cool art forward projects as possible, but really, if that gameplay loop is something that is inviting, that's riveting, that has a lot of sort of cathartic sensibilities and an interesting feedback to it, that's also always going to draw our attention. So there's certainly a big matrix that goes into making the decision, but I would say those are some real pillars of what ends up making the call as to if we're going to select a game or not. But inevitably, we only have so many slots. It is a finite thing.
We're going to work our way back to Tribeca, but I'm going to go way, way back in time because I am a firm believer of our first interactions with games as a child influence so much of who we are as gamers. Yeah. You grew up in the island of Dominica in the West Indies. Tell me about your experience there growing up and with games and how it influenced your career now.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for asking that. I have an older sister. She's 9 years older than me. Dr. Emily, a good friend, because goodness knows if I don't mention the doctor, I won't hear the end of it.
That's a good sister.
But yeah, a wonderful sister. But, we got hand-me-down consoles. So there were cousins of ours that had older Ataris, and I remember the first Super Nintendo that we got, that was really my console. I remember playing my first Super Mario on there. And so it was really all about community, and we would pass the controller along, whether it was my sister and I or hanging out with a bunch of the cousins and just playing games in that format. The amount of fighting tournaments that I've been a part of with family, whether it's Street Fighter, whether it's the Wu-Tang Shaolin game from the late 90s, that really informed a lot of my ideas about games. And then I got my first PlayStation, and that started to create or craft my own perspective on what I wanted, what experience I was really sort of driving into. So I was playing a lot of Crash Bandicoot, I was playing a lot of Spyro. As it evolved and I got more PlayStations, we were doing Jack 2, Ratchet Deadlock, like a lot of these single player experiences that were just building up. But one of the more formative things for me also was when I moved to the States. I grew up in Miami, and going to Horace Mann Middle School, we would host LAN parties with Halo and Halo 2 in our computer lab. A bunch of kids that are supposed to be learning how to use computers, and we're like building on our own towers and all the things. But what do we want to do instead? We would rather be playing Halo. So we would set up all these LAN death matches and whatnot and capture and flag, playing Halo together. So again, coming back to community, right? So I'd say those are the two lifts for me. It was always community and single player story driven experiences that always just kept me pushing forward and interested in the medium. And that's evolved over time. And it's funny thinking about some of it now. When the podcast came out with Khalif, you mentioned Spawn on Me, I had a conversation with my dad about it, and he's like, I didn't know you were so into games, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you literally drove me to GameStop to buy PlayStation 2 and 3 games. What are you talking about? Like, the amount of times on a Sunday, my father was a cook. He would work Monday through Saturday every week. Sundays were his only day off. And of course, I'm like saving up my little money growing up as a kid, and I'm like, I want to go buy XYZ new game. Can we go to GameStop? And he would we'd jump in the Honda Accord and run down to GameStop in Hialeah and buy up some stuff. So it's just funny to think about all those moments that you might not think has this really impactful stepping stones to your career, but all of a sudden here you are talking on a podcast with Chris Plant about it.
Hey, I know exactly what you mean. My mom was a hairdresser, and she would make some extra money having people come over to the house and would put me in front of the Nintendo and play. Wow. And she's like, I didn't think you were going to make video games your career. And it's like, you didn't? It wasn't a little obvious.
Not at all, right?
But sure. So there's another part of your life that I want to get into, and then I swear we're going back to Tribeca.
Being there, everyone.
You have had a career in film festivals in the beautiful city of Austin, Texas, my former home. But you also have some experience with games before all of that. You were involved in NYU Game Center's incubator. Is that right?
That actually started when I moved to the city, when I got the job for Tribeca. So, frankly, I refer to her lovingly as my games mom, Susan O'Connor. I did a game writing masterclass. Susan now runs the narrative department, where she teaches rising game and interested game writers, some more of the nuances and insights into how to really break stories and to also work with designers and be part of a team, right? Because she also had a lot of folks interested from the screenwriting or film side of things. And that can be such a singular experience that's very much writer-driven and focused. With regards to games and games development, that's not exactly the case. You're feeding into a much larger system, a much larger team and framework. And so that crafted a lot of sort of bonds and experiences for me. So when I moved to New York, Susan immediately put me in touch with Eric Zimmerman over at NYU Game Center. And once Eric and I hit it off, he was kind enough to invite me to be part of the board, the advisory board for the Game Center incubator. And it's just been a lovely process ever since. It's been, 3 going on 4 years now. Hopefully they bring me back again. But it's always, the funny thing about it is every year, we have this kickoff call where we're on a Zoom for multiple hours, and each of the finalist contestants pitch their project, and it's maybe 8 to 10 different teams, and we comb it down by half that size for the final teams. And it's every year been on Tribeca's opening night. So here I am in probably a full suit on this Zoom. All my colleagues are having fun at opening night on the red carpet and all the things. And here I am in a Zoom with other like-minded folks in the games industry who just want to provide opportunities, right? So it's been a real blast for me. I've loved it. We've had the opportunity to support some cool teams with some interesting projects coming through. And frankly, I just love the fact that it keeps me so close to what a lot of young creatives are interested in, right? I think you see the potential future of the industry from that purview or from that seat. So it's been a joy. And frankly, it's a unique opportunity that I'm always mindful and privileged to be a part of, because we don't frankly have too many of them across the country. And I surely wish we would see more, but that's a larger conversation.
Is it a pipeline, and not the pipeline, but a pipeline to Tribeca? Because Tribeca began historically as a festival for New Yorkers and was a representative of their city, right? This is post 9/11. Right. And games, especially big budget games, tend to be made globally. They are kind of from nowhere, or they're from Montreal, one or the other. But there is a scene that is growing in New York, and I will be very transparent for you and listeners, fully biased. I think people like Gabe and Bennett with Baby Steps. I think of Despelote. I think of this incredible groundswell of talent that is really coming into form. A.P. Thompson, Jenny Zhao Zha. Is that the sort of community that you're hoping to bring into the Tribeca fold to create that New York feel? Or is it more of a national or international experience?
Oh, great question. Certainly, we try to keep our roots very close to us, right? So you mentioned Despelote. Julian was such a joy to work with, and I know that he came through the incubator was a real treat. So certainly, to your point about pathway, there is that possibility, right? I mentioned the sort of a finite number of slots we have year over year. Typically, historically, we've had 7 to 9 games in official selections. This year, we're up to 12, and that is obviously the largest program we've had today, which is very exciting. But we don't want to just grow for the sake of it, right? There's always has to be a mindset towards it, and it is a jury competition, so I always want to be mindful towards the bandwidth of those excellent folks in the industry who are helping us out from that perspective. And quick shout out to Dinga, Alana Pierce, and Adam Boyes, Dinga Makaba, who are our jurors this year. But yeah, we're always trying to keep an eye out for that local talent, but it is certainly a global competition. This year, we have a game from Japan/Taiwan and Drifted. Chihu is such an amazing developer. We're very excited to have his solo developed project on board. We have a game that's developed in Indonesia, Kit Bash Super Legend, but published by a very local homegrown publisher in Acclaim. So we're excited to be part of now Acclaim coming back in full force and supporting them on that level, but also noting that they have this mindset towards giving opportunities to international developers. You mentioned the Montreal of it all. We have 2 projects from Canada this year, including Rebounder and as well as Rivage. And so both those games are so different. And I just love the art sort of pulp-driven nature of Rebounder that has such a killer soundtrack. And if you're a fan of platformers, that game is gonna just sink its teeth into you, and I don't know how you're gonna get out. And then Rivage is just this beautiful puzzle, narrative-driven experience that it hits a lot of notes for folks who are fans of what Raw Fury does as a publisher and the kinds of projects they like to push forward. So I think, it works on both levels, and we definitely try to keep those, like I said, homegrown connections, whether it's Gumbo games, games under Gumbo project and that group. Love what they do over there. We certainly have a lot of different relationships with a number of different organizations locally. So trying to just make sure we can support both as best as possible. But anywhere there's talent, I'm trying to keep an eye out for it.
And just because this is an audio-only podcast, I do want the listeners to know that when you said Acclaim, I did light a cigarette and mumble, now that's a name I haven't heard in a while. It didn't scan well in audio, but I'll try to emphasize, I'll sweeten it in post. A last thing for you, because there's so much we could talk about. There's all of these presentations and talks and Q&As. I'm going to make sure that people have access to that in the show notes. And there are these 12 games. I'm not asking you to pick a favorite, but I'd like you to tell us one game, just one game, that could benefit from some extra attention.
Oh, one game. Love Song, which comes to us from Unrelated Games based in Italy. That game just has so much magic from my POV behind it, and that team, they're comprised of folks who've worked in a number of different visual art spaces and cinematic spaces. And you can just feel the passion for the medium as soon as you get your hands on the controller. It's funny, I had a colleague send me a message earlier today and mention how much it reminds them of Monument Valley. And I was like, that's it. It's like Monument Valley, Chance of Senar, had a baby, and a little bit of Journey as well. Like, it's just this mismatch of all these really special games. And I think the ideas at play that they're trying to explore, especially through the brutalist architecture that they have front and center, and from a real aesthetic perspective there, is dynamite. So I think that's certainly one that's going to surprise a lot of folks. And I know they had a recent announcement tied to an Xbox showcase, so we're excited that they're starting to get their name out in the world slowly but surely. But that's one as far as a big premiere that we're really excited to have. It feels like a real discovery as part of the overall program, but there are things that are working in a lot of different spaces. I know you said one, quick 1A or 1B.
I see what you're doing.
Virtue and a Sledgehammer is just really cool. And the one thing I'll say about it is, if you're someone who's ever enjoyed a rage room or ever looked for an experience that lets you get some real cathartic emotional response out of it, this is going to really work for you. And really beautiful story as well. But the art style is something unique. Like, every time I see it within our overall list of projects, I get really excited. But yeah, I will leave it at that. But this is a special prop this year. I'm really excited for all the developers.
You heard it here first. Those are the 2 best games, and the other 10 are okay. It's not true. They're all fantastic. You can read about all of them in the show notes at post.games or on the Patreon, et cetera, et cetera. Before we wrap, where can people learn more about this, both if they want to attend in real life, and what is available for people who don't live in New York?
Yeah, if you go to tribecafilm.com, you'll find hosting information about all the games as well as our special events. This year we have a ticketed special event in partnership with Remedy Entertainment revolved around Control Resonant. Of course, the incredibly highly anticipated sequel from the 2019 multi-Game of the Year winner. So as a personal big fan of that, I'm looking forward to the conversation between Nia DaCosta and Mikhail Kasarin. And so there's, again, more information on that, information on all the games available there. If you can't make it, we don't currently have a lot of digital offerings, but you can also get a taste of some of what we've done previously. A couple years ago, we partnered with Square Enix to host a conversation with Hamaguchi-san and Katase-san, who are the creative leads of Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy, and that's actually posted on their YouTube page, on the Square Enix official YouTube page. So you can find that to get a taste of just, what we do and what we're all about as far as getting that cultural conversation and really sort of trying to be a positive impact on that for the industry. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff available. I know a number of the projects are going to have demos also launching on Steam later this summer. So I'd definitely tell folks to keep an eye out for that. And please wishlist, like any of these games. If something calls out to you, jump on Steam, whatever your platform of choice may be, where they're available, and please wishlist. It does a lot to help these devs.
Can I say just a quick thing, because we kind of sped through it there? Mm-hmm. The Nia DaCosta, the director of EDA, and 28 years later, one of the 10 most exciting directors alive right now, is using their time at Tribeca to talk about a video game. That's how you earn trust, man. That is it right there. That's incredible. It really is incredible.
Nia is awesome. I'm such a fan of hers. I had the pleasure of meeting with her and having lunch with her last year, and she let me know pretty immediately anything games related she's in. And I've known for a while actually that she's a big fan of the Control franchise and really just everything Remedy does. So once the opportunity came along to put this together, she was like first choice, obvious pick. And thankfully it works with her schedule, because I don't know if you heard, she's going to be very busy. She signed up to do Sex Criminals, the pilot for that, and a number of things. So very, very excited to be welcoming her back. As I mentioned, she's a Tribeca alum with Lil Woods, Nora Ephron winner. So it very much feels like family returning home. So can't wait.
I love it. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Anytime, man. An absolute pleasure.
That, my friends, is not a wrap on Persona Summer. It is a start to Persona Summer. Now, go and discover your true self. Next week, one of my favorite episodes, the inaugural Post-Games Game of the Year Awards. I am claiming the title for the earliest Game Awards show of the year, and I am doing it with the help of 40 of the best critics, reporters, designers, directors, comedians, authors, memoirists, and more. But Chris, you say, you can't do that. It's June. Friend, too many games have been released already, and I refuse to let the gems of the first half of 2026 be forgotten by the time ballots are submitted this fall. Recency biased, you cannot win this time. Until then, a reminder, post-game supporters get the show and the newsletter early on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. They get extra acts and bonus materials. This week, Patreon listeners got the show early. That's really it, because they were generous enough to make sure that the entire episode could be shared with you for this wonderful Persona Summer. Plus, each month, subscribers get a bonus episode in my ongoing series, Past Games, in which I share deep dive histories into the gaming anniversaries of 2026. My voice is going in real time, friends. The most recent bonus episode tells the history of Batman video games over the past 40 years. And no ads on anything. Subscribe to the Patreon for just $5 at patreon.com/postgames. Subscribe to the newsletter for free at post.games. Postgames logo by James Bareham. Theme by Mark Sparling. And a special thank you to this week's guests, Stephen Hilger, Brendan Bigley, Leigh Alexander, and Casey Barron. Like the show, leave a review on Apple or Spotify, or just share the show with a friend. That is a humongous help. And now, to take us out, a cover of the beloved Persona song, Aria of the Soul, from the Persona 30th Anniversary Jazz album by the Blue Shift Big Band, available right now for pre-order at I Am 8-Bit until June 8th, which is like right now. So if you want to get it, go do that right now. I will see you next week.